Now, here's a topic that I want to go more in depth on at some point, but this is a podcast and it's still worth talking about it because school is coming, and whether it's going to be in person or whether you're doing it from home, this is going to be an important topic for people. And that is, what is the best iPad mouse for most people, and what is the best trackpad for most people? There's more options than you probably realize. Of course, there's Apple's Magic Mouse too, which is definitely an option. And I'm actually pretty fond of that mouse, even though a lot of people have said they don't like it. I really do like it. And then there's Apple's Magic Trackpad, which is now in its second generation. And that's a cool thing. That's a standalone option. And I've used it before. You can see in some of my earlier iPad Pro content from, within the last year that I've used it, and it's been cool. That was before the Magic Keyboard came out that had the trackpad built in. That's, of course, another option. The Magic Keyboard, if you get an iPad Pro and maybe an iPad Air soon, then you can use that built-in trackpad, and that's cool too. Or you could go with the brand new Logitech MX Master that is made specifically for Apple devices. They say it's been mastered for the Mac, but also works for the iPad. I used to not like that mouse, but I really do like it a lot these days. You could use something like the Pebble i345, which is a great mouse. You've seen that. In fact, I got it right here. This is the Pebble. If you're watching this instead of listening to the podcast, this is an amazing mouse. I love the way that it clicks, and it's such a great price at $30. Of course, you could use something like the Microsoft Arc, which I've never used, but I hear good things about. People really like that design, that compact design, lightweight. Or something else that I've had some experience with is the Satecki, The Satecki M1. It's a Bluetooth mouse, and you can see that featured in an iPad setup video I did a while back, which was pretty cool. It's been getting some views. People have been liking it, even though it's many months since I made it. So, which direction should you go? And does it even matter? Should you get a mouse for your iPad? I think you should. iPads were born as touch-first devices for your finger, and then the Apple Pencil got added, and you could do something more precise with that tip of the pencil than your finger, which is a lot less precise. And then Apple added mouse support, and I didn't know if I was going to like it or care, and I ended up really liking it to the point where I do use the Magic Keyboard basically all the time with my iPad Pro, because I wouldn't want to be without the mouse now, or the trackpad, I guess, in that instance. So honestly, I think, yes, you should get a mouse or a trackpad of some sort. You don't have to. It's not a prerequisite, but I think it really does make for a great experience. Especially the trackpad is cool because you get the multi-finger gestures, the multi-touch gestures. Those are time savers, to be honest. And unless you get Apple's Magic Mouse, if you go with any of these other mice and not a trackpad, you're going to lose that. And you can replicate it a little bit if you program some of the keys, like I showed in my Siri Shortcuts video recently, how to reprogram one of the, actually this button right here, I showed you how to reprogram that using Siri Shortcuts to get some, extra functionality out of it. But let's start with the Apple stuff. Would I rather have Apple's external trackpad, or would I rather have the trackpad that comes built into the Magic Keyboard for the iPad Pro, or would I rather have Apple's Magic Mouse? Well, honestly, I'll just be honest. You can't go wrong. It's more efficient to just have everything built into the Magic Keyboard on the iPad Pro. But if you're not a Pro user, I guess, then what would I pick? Well, I would probably pick the trackpad, I think. It's a really, really fun experience. And it's not that bad to take the trackpad, to pack it up and bring it with you someplace. It's not as bad as you might imagine. A mouse is a little more compact, so that's something to keep in mind. But I like the gestures too much. Like multitasking, swiping between things. If I have two full screen windows open, just 3-finger swipe left and right to get around. That's amazing. Of course, you can swipe around with the mouse too. It's a matter of preference, I guess. But I would prefer the bigger, larger trackpad, I think. It's kind of a toss-up between the Magic Mouse and the Magic Trackpad. It's just whatever you think you would enjoy more. Can't go wrong. The Satecki M1, let's hit that next. That I have used. It was featured in a video, and it's okay. And I'm just going to say, just okay. I actually didn't love it in terms of how it clicked and the look. It's just okay. And one of the reasons is it just doesn't feel like a super high quality thing. A lot of the stuff Satecki makes is great stuff, but this feels a little too budget for me if you're going to be relying on this for a long time. Maybe you are just looking for a cheaper option. But if you are, I would recommend the Logitech i345. It's the Pebble. It's the first mouse that really was designed to be used with an iPad. What does that mean? Well, it's light and it's cheap and light basically, but without feeling super budget or like it's going to break. And I really, really, really like the way that it clicks. Super satisfying, something about it. Okay, what about the MX Master? I got it right here. I'm gonna set it right on top of its own picture. This is an amazing mouse, and I've been liking it even more since Logitech recently sent it. Disclosure, they did send it to me to test. But like I said, I used to not like this mouse. I just didn't like the way that it felt in my hand. As I've been doing more and more video editing over the years, it's grown on me because I feel like I've turned into more and more of a power user. If I was ever a power user in the past in that category, that's only increased. And so all the ways that I can customize this are why I've come to appreciate it. It's very, very, very professional. It's like if you do professional things, you almost have to get this mouse. Now, is it overkill for an iPad? Possibly, maybe, but it's really, really premium. You know it's going to last. This version doesn't require a dongle anymore. I didn't like that about previous versions that I've used where you had to plug something into the USB port. You can use this with the iPad without a dongle. Of course, you would have to. And that's great. That makes for a much better experience. The scroll wheel on this thing, there's two actually, is just amazing. There's nothing else that compares. I guess except, the Magic Mouse, it doesn't have a scroll wheel. It just has a touch interface. And that's cool in its own way. But if you prefer the tactile feel of an actual scroll button, this thing can't be beat. And it's unlike anything else out there. I'm not just saying that. Like the way that it scrolls, it kind of has two modes. And it clicks, obviously, too. But you can scroll it just a little bit, or you can really scroll it a lot, and it will go forever. So you can go to the bottom of a website, a long article really fast, or back to the top really fast. And then, of course, all the buttons. It's super customizable. So in the past, didn't love it, but I've totally flipped around, and I really do like it. It has nothing to do with Logitech sending it to me. I guess it just has more to do with needing that extra functionality in ways that I hadn't in the past. And then also kind of making peace with the design. It's not like it's uncomfortable. I actually felt like the Magic Mouse 2 was more comfortable, even though it's flatter and it doesn't fit into your palm like the MX Master does. But I've gotten over disliking the way that it feels compared to the Magic Mouse and just liking the extra functionality. Microsoft Arc, I have no experience, I'm just going to be honest, but I think it's a good option. It's worth including here. I've looked at it many times. I've liked the design. I said, that looks really cool. And I like how portable it is, the fact that it bends up and, stashes away. It's a really well thought out thing. I have to give props to Microsoft, their design team. The industrial design has been great over the last few years. If a lot of their stuff ran Mac OS, I would love to buy it, or iPad OS and not Windows. Windows is really the main holdup for me when it comes to Microsoft stuff. But this is something that has had my eye, and I've heard good things about it. And so I think if you like the design, this is probably something that's worth looking into. One last thing that's worth mentioning, though, before I give you my final recommendation, like if I had to pick one thing, is the Logitech K380 Media. Is that right? Yes, K380 Media. It's a keyboard with a trackpad off to the side. And so, as you can see here, now that you have mouse support, trackpad support for iPads, this is an interesting option. Now, this is more of a desk-based option. It's not something you'd really want to stash in a bag and bring with you. You could. If you really liked it, I guess you could. So this is, I think, tend to be more of a desk-based setup. But it's interesting. It's worth mentioning. I tend to really like the quality of Logitech's keyboards. And so I feel like I can recommend it, even though this is another thing I haven't used, but it seems like a perfect fit for an iPad. This keyboard right here is a K380. It's not the media version, and it's brand new as well. Really soft keys. It's great to type on. Like I mentioned earlier, it's kind of the opposite of a mechanical keyboard. It feels very solid. It doesn't feel like it's going to break. It feels like it could be long lasting. So those are the best options, I think. So at the end of the day, what would I pick? I think in order, if you have an iPad Pro, I would definitely get the Magic Keyboard. Love the typing experience, but the trackpad is great. Just set the sensitivity up to high, and it's going to be just as good as using, in my opinion, the larger trackpad that you get with the 16-inch MacBook Pro. If I couldn't get that and I still wanted the touch experience, then I would also recommend the Magic Trackpad 2. That's a great device as well. It's not quite as easy to travel with, but it's not bad. When it comes to the mice, I think at this point, it's a toss-up, but I would probably go with the Apple one just because Apple stuff plays really nicely together. You don't have to worry about it. But it's just a toss-up between that, in my mind, and the MX Master mouse. Such a high-quality product. I think there's a little bit more lag with the MX Master, but not something that's going to be detrimental. In fact, if you didn't test them side by side, you may not even notice. That's the thing. When you test stuff as a tech reviewer side by side, then sometimes things jump out that wouldn't actually matter to the average everyday person who's not testing something out right next to another device that's slightly different. So those are my recommendations. I'll link them all up though so that you can check them out down in the description in the show notes.